I don't think I'd been this excited to watch a film in quite a long time. A good chunk of time ago, I watched the 1962 Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, and I loved it so much. I knew I wanted to read the book. I almost never do that. I'll often read a book and then watch an adaptation, but I almost never watch an adaptation, then read a book, because the films put the images in my head. It takes away a lot of the fun. But I loved this so much that I went to read it, and I finally got round to it, and I loved it. It is so fabulous. I loved almost every second of the book. And I knew I was going to watch the 1991 adaptation afterwards. And in general, I liked it. There are a couple of things that weren't executed in ways that I think they could have been. They weren't as strong or as powerful as they could have been, and I will mention those without giving any spoilers. But in general, it's a solid adaptation. If you want to know which I prefer, I will mention that at the end. This was released, of course, in 1991. It's directed by David Greene, written by Brian Taggert, based, of course, on the wonderful novel by Henry Farrell. And we have a cast including Vanessa Redgrave as Blanche and Lynn Redgrave as Baby Jane. And the story, very briefly, once upon a time, Baby Jane was a successful child star, and we don't know too much too soon, but now in present day in the film, I'll talk more about the timing in a moment, but now in present day, Baby Jane, an adult of course, is looking after her sister who became paralysed in a bit of a mysterious circumstance. Not only is that in itself quite a mystery, but Baby Jane starts to act in ways that are quite concerning, and Blanche might be in danger from her sister. And I don't want to give away anything else. I want to talk about so many aspects of the story, the specifics, but I don't want to give any spoilers here. But certainly if you watch this version or the other, or you read it and you want to talk about it, I'm here. Drop me an email. I'm absolutely here for that. So in terms of how the story is handled, very well done, very recognisable as the story. There are some elements that were added that aren't in the book, but in general, it is very recognisable. The thing that I didn't love, and I probably wouldn't have felt this had I not read the book, but this one is actually set in the 90s, whereas the 60s version is set in the 60s. The book was published in 1960, so the film released very quickly. That's very quick after a novel is published, and it's set at the time, which I prefer. But that being said, if they were going to adapt it again, they have to do something a little bit different, otherwise what's the point? So I don't hate that it's set in the 90s, because it offers something a little bit different. Had it been set in the 60s, they would basically just be doing the exact same story in the exact same way. So I don't think it's a bad decision necessarily, but because I'm so attached to the story as it is, I personally didn't like that, but I'm not saying that it was the wrong decision. The other thing that I didn't love, and again, I wouldn't have picked up on this had I not read it, is I don't think Blanche is frail enough. She seems too strong, physically and mentally, and that's not to say there aren't changes throughout the film at all, but I feel like she needed to come across as being mentally and physically weaker and more dependent on Jane than she actually did. So I don't love the character writing of Blanche there. I don't think that was done as powerfully or as effectively as it could have been. Again, I can't go into too much detail about what happens with the characters, but the character writing for Blanche, it wasn't quite there. It didn't quite hit the mark. Whereas Baby Jane, yeah, absolutely. And the appearance of Baby Jane, I think they did an absolutely fantastic job. Believable, not too over the top. It definitely worked really well. And there was something that genuinely took me by surprise. Blanche's bedroom is almost exactly what was in my mind. Scarily so. Certainly when we're looking into the room from the perspective of, from about the window, if you watch the film you'll know what I mean. If we're kind of looking from the window towards the door, that part of the room was just identical to what was in my mind. So I absolutely loved that. I was really taken by surprise there. The house does look brilliant. The settings are great. The set designs are fabulous. The costumes are brilliant. Camera work is great. Really great music. Okay lighting. In general, the 1991 Whatever Happened to Baby Jane is just a lot of fun. It is fabulous. However, I do think the 1962 version is better, because Well, first and foremost, because it's set at the time. And I just think it's a lot more effective that way. It's a lot more enjoyable. It's not so much that the characters are performed better, but I do think the character writing of Blanche is a little bit more believable with the book, and I think maybe the Baby Jane character writing is maybe a slightly bit more over the top, but it also does work quite well with a lot of the descriptions in the book. So if you've never read the book, the 1991 version is still fabulous, but I do recommend reading the book and then watching the 62 version and then watching the 1991 version. But I still enjoyed it. Absolutely adored the book. So glad I made the decision to read it, and without question I will be rewatching the 1962 version at some point soon.